Hey travelers out there, welcome back to A Wanderlust for Life.
I'm Sean and this is Jessica.
Hey, and we are just doing a Q&A today so you can get to know us a little bit better. We've had some people ask questions. Also, we've gotten a lot of the same questions over the last year or so we're here to answer them. I'm going to be looking over here because that's where my questions are. Okay, so where are we from and why did we choose the Netherlands? I'll let you start.
Okay, I'm from New Jersey originally. I grew up in South Jersey, just outside Philadelphia, and then we met in Virginia. And I guess I'm from Virginia as well because we lived there for almost 10 years, maybe more.
Yeah, well, I think between college and then living together, you probably 10, 11 years? No,
14 years.
10 or 11 years, and you,
14, yeah.
So that's where we're from, and then why we chose the Netherlands is pretty strategic, actually. He wanted to move to Europe, and I was totally on board with that because we've both been to Europe before, and we fell in love with it and the idea of the European lifestyle. And that's very different from the American lifestyle, which is something we can talk about in another video. But he was, would you say, lucky enough to be Italian?
Well, luck was certainly, well, when we were looking for places in Europe to move, we pretty much decided that it was going to have to be a place where I could find a job. So the field that I'm in, basically the main markets are London, Amsterdam, Paris, and Frankfurt. So, we thought about moving to London, but London is a bit too similar to America in terms of culture and language and all of that.
It's very busy too.
Yeah, and very expensive. And I had been to Amsterdam a couple times for work, and we came once for holiday a couple years before we moved.
To test it?
To test. And so we decided to try Amsterdam.
Yeah, and I think it was kind of as simple as that. We knew where he could find work, and I think that was obviously the most important reason because we knew we had to be able to support ourselves. And because he has an Italian passport, we were able to move to Europe as long as he found a job and could sponsor me because I don't have an Italian passport yet. So it was a big deal. And Amsterdam was kind of like that Goldilocks place, I think. And we both just fell in love with it when we kind of did our little tester trip. And it didn't take long for Amsterdam to feel like home. So I think we're both pretty glad we chose the city. And in case you missed it, we're actually doing this video from our home, and last week's video is a home tour. So if you want to see the home that we purchased last year, definitely check out the last video, and we'll leave a link probably up there and down in the description below. So don't miss that because we're really happy with our house. So we want to share that with you. So that's how we ended up in Amsterdam. The next question is, what do you miss from home? This is a tough question for us.
Yeah. I don't really miss too much from home. I miss milkshakes. There's no good milkshakes in the Netherlands, really.
Not that we found.
No, not yet. I miss Chick-fil-A. That's a really weird thing to miss, but there's nothing quite like that here. But those are the only two things. Cheap electronics. Electronics are a little more expensive here in general.
Yeah, I guess electronics are just expensive in my opinion, so they're expensive everywhere. Yeah, Chick-fil-A for me as well. It's actually, my family makes fun of me a little bit because whenever I go back, it's usually one of the first meals that I have. Because driving back from the airport to any of my family's houses, there's a Chick-fil-A on the way. So I try to stop there and have a Chick-fil-A and a milkshake before coming home. And even the town that we lived in for 7 years? Jeez. Before we moved here, they have a Chick-fil-A. So whenever I visit there, I also get a milkshake for the ride back to see my family. So that's a big thing. I think the biggest thing is obviously loved ones. I mean, being away, we're both very independent, and ever since I was 18, I was pretty independent. I never really got homesick, But I think that's just because I'm always really interested in like living my own life without help, I guess is the best way to say it. I'm not really sure. But yeah, it's just living on my own is so freeing, but it's also challenging and it builds you as a person. And I think I really enjoy those challenges, except trying to find people and having to do taxes and stuff like that. That's really annoying. But is there anything else that I miss? I do miss my college. I really miss my college because it was very much a family. And so whenever I go back, I always visit my college, and I think it's just such a big part of my life. I mean, it's where we met. It's actually where we got married. And I worked on campus for 4 years. I actually stayed every summer on campus for 3 summers. And it's such a part of me that I really miss that community. But I think that's kind of it. Everything else either has an equivalent over here, or it's just not a part of our lives here, and we've kind of adapted to that. But I think community is really the biggest for me. That's what I forgot to say. I was really involved in the town, and so I volunteered a lot, and I met a lot of people and did a lot of things, and we lived right in the center, so we could walk everywhere, and that was really nice. I don't know, there's just, that part is missing for me, but then we've gained so much by being in a city like Amsterdam. So everything that you could want is really here. We have an IMAX. What are some of the, that was like my biggest thing about a city is that
we've never been there, but it was
that's a good point. We've never actually been to the IMAX theater. I've been to that theater, but not to the IMAX part of the theater. And that's like my gauge of a city is if it has an IMAX. But the two biggest things were the IMAX and the airport. What are the reasons you think Amsterdam's like?
Great public transit. You can get anywhere quickly. You don't need a car. The city's really well kept up, you know.
Yeah, you pay high taxes, but
you get a lot for your taxes for sure.
Yeah, so like a lot of things are subsidized. Public transit is not very expensive. The roads are kept up very well. It's not very trashy. If you ever come to Amsterdam and it's trashy, it's probably trash day.
Or the day after King's Day.
Or the day after
Or
King's
the day
Day.
after Gay Pride or something like that.
Yeah, like a major festival.
Yeah.
Because it's actually a pretty clean city and they work really quickly to clean it up. But in the very center of Amsterdam, they don't have trash receptacles because it's from the 16th century, I think was the very start. So they couldn't dig down and make trash receptacles, whereas here we have underground trash cans basically, so you don't see the trash. But it's a very clean city and it just has everything that I could want. Nice restaurants, movie theaters. We get movie premieres. One day, we'll go to a movie premiere. I'm just saying, I have no idea if that's gonna happen. Okay, next question. Let's see. How do you make money? It's a pretty easy one.
Yeah, I have a 9 to 5. I work a traditional job, and that's how we make most of the money.
That's how we make most of the money. I did work for the same company for 2.5 years, and I left my job at the end of June in 2018. I have a blog post on that. I'll leave that in the description below if you want to read it. So it was a whole mix of reasons why I left, and a big part of it was I wanted to work for myself and try out travel blogging as a full-time job, because back to what I said earlier about being challenged, I think everything about it is challenging. And a lot of people think that it's just typing up a blog post, publishing some photos and hitting send, but like with the research and the background and the actually doing the things that you know what you're talking about, and writing and search engine optimization, photos, videos, social media, and it's so interesting, and it really caught my attention as far as trying to make it a job, and it's a challenge for me now. That challenge has not come into lots of money yet, but it also gives us opportunities to travel places that we probably wouldn't have traveled otherwise. And those are also places that we want to share with you, because we want you to see places that maybe you wouldn't have traveled otherwise, because it's pretty common for people to come to Amsterdam and London and Barcelona and all those places. But there's some places that we're hoping to get to this year that you may not have even heard of and you probably haven't been to. And we're really excited to share those things with you because I think that the great thing about being a blogger or a vlogger is finding a community that's similar to you or that has the same interests in general. So if we like these places, hopefully you will. Anything else?
No.
No? Yeah, that's an easy question. He makes most of the money. Let's see. How do you handle traveling so much as a couple? I'm always gonna let you start. I don't know why.
I'm not sure how to answer this question because I think we just do it. Like, I don't know that there's a whole lot of strategy. I mean, we've been living together for long enough that we know what it's like to be in close proximity. Like, it's just like daily life, but in a different place, right? Like, it's natural at this point for us. So it's tough to say, really.
I think the biggest test we ever had was when we first moved here. Mm-hmm. He moved 2.5 weeks before I did, and that was a struggle because that was the longest we've been apart since we've been together. And we were at the apartment for 2.5 or 3 months constantly because he wasn't working yet. He was looking for a job. I wasn't working because I couldn't work until he started working. And being together 24/7, that can be a challenge. And you start to get a little nitpicky.
Yeah, and if you think about, like, before we moved, I was working a really weird schedule.
Yeah.
And so for several years, like, we didn't spend consecutive days together. So, like, when we moved here, it was the first time we were
normal schedule.
On a normal schedule together, yeah, because frequently I was, like, leaving at 5 a.m. to go to work or working 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
So when we moved here, it kind of, I think, reset our expectations a bit.
Yeah, and I think what's so interesting about it is between the weird schedule that he was working before, which he would be home, leaving early, get home late, something like that. But before that, he was working night shift, and that dug into our weekends because if he worked night shift Friday nights, he obviously didn't want to do things on Saturday. So we've been together since my sophomore year of college. So it's like we went from college to roommates, like having another roommate as well, and then to living together, just the two of us, but him working really bizarre hours, and then we come here in a whole new culture, neither of us working for about 3 months, and then getting on a normal schedule. And I think, like, once you're together so long and you understand each other, you just find a way to do it. You don't really think about it. One of the things we have started thinking about, we don't do it so often unless I guess we feel like we need to, is spending like an afternoon or something apart if we're somewhere for a long time. So we don't always have the same interest when traveling.
Yeah, so Jessica's not really a museum person. I'm sure you haven't seen much museum stuff on our YouTube channel or in the blog. But I like some museums depending on what they are. So sometimes we'll just split up for a day and you'll go do something that you want to do and I'll go visit a couple of museums.
Or cars.
Yeah, cars.
Big car guy over here.
Or car museums, yeah.
Yeah, but there are a lot of things we like to do together. So anything to do with food, wine, spirits, walking around, finding beautiful spots to take photos, getting up like above a city to look down, just things like that. There are a lot of things we like to do together, but sometimes we just have an afternoon apart. And what's cool about that is you can come back together for dinner and then you can talk about your day and share your pictures, and I think that's kind of a cool thing to do. So that's my biggest tip, but also just communication. Again, we've been together so long, like I know like the look on his face when I'm annoying him.
Does it look like this?
No, it's not quite as nice as that. And I'm pretty obvious when I'm annoyed as well. So like if that happens and you're just like, okay, what was it? And then what can we do to kind of come back to a better place? But yeah, I think communication is just always going to be the answer when it comes to traveling or being a couple ever. So let's see, what else do we have? I think, why do we like Amsterdam so much? We've already hit on this a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think the community. It's not the same community we had in our old town, but it's pretty cool.
It feels like it really feels like a village. Like there's 1 million people here, but I feel like I run into people I know from different parts of the city all the time. Like anytime I go out, I run into somebody I know, which is like statistically crazy, but
yeah.
It feels like a really small town, but it has all of the like amenities of like of a big city.
The IMAX.
Yeah, definitely the IMAX, which we haven't used. No, I mean, there's so much to love about Amsterdam. For me, I think it's the most beautiful city in Europe at night. With the lights and the canals, it's so nice to just wander around here at night after all the tourists have left.
And the weird thing about it is it's quiet at night. We used to live. You've probably heard of the Anne Frank house. So if you keep going a little bit west, that's where we used to live, from the Anne Frank house. And we would travel home in the evening, and it might be 8:00. And there's nobody on the road. There's nobody walking down the street. Now there's the hubs, like the tourist hubs, like Leidseplein and Rembrandtplein, but like those are clubby areas, so they're gonna go later. But you can easily walk the canals at night and just be quiet. And it's so crazy, and it feels wrong. Like the first time I saw it, I thought something was going on. I thought something was wrong. But for me, it's like it is running into people everywhere. I think the funniest instance of that was we moved from the west to the north, and the north is across the water behind Central Station. People don't really come to the north unless you have a reason, like a specific reason to. But I think it was that first week, it might have been that day or the next day, we went up to the shopping center and ran into, not even kidding, our neighbor right below us from the west. And
that's crazy.
I just, like, we both kind of stared at each other for a second, like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
I mean, she knew we had moved, but she was visiting somebody else, and we just happened to run into each other. But it happens all the time. I mean, I could give a bunch of examples, and the craziest are during King's Day, when there's 1 million people literally in the center of Amsterdam, and you run into people,
Like 2 weeks ago, we were in the center, we were waiting for a cookie. And at our favorite cookie shop.
Well, this is a small world story, more than a small Amsterdam story.
And Jessica's friend's husband cycled by.
Oh yeah, that is an Amsterdam story. Yeah, so I'm like, oh hey, okay. And then I like texted my friend, and I was like, hey, is he in the center? And she's like, oh yeah, he is. But what I thought he was gonna say was that same time we ran into somebody from where I'm from in Virginia, the next town over. Like, that's a really small world, because I don't come from a big area, and she lived like the next town over, like she went the next school over, and she's lived here for almost as long as we have, and that was just like the craziest thing. There's an entire world out there, and I start talking to the girl from the next county. Just so bizarre. But I just really think that there's something here for everybody. I'm not big into clubbing, not into the drug scene, not into the raves or anything like that. And that's here if you want it, but we're into the restaurants, the culture, the festivals, the
accessibility
bars.
To the rest of Europe.
That too. A lot of people ask us for recommendations in Amsterdam, and sadly we don't go out as much when we're at home.
I feel like we know most of like the places you want to eat or drink, but like where we get really tripped up is when people ask us for hotel recommendations in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Because we don't generally stay in hotels in Amsterdam. Yeah.
We can tell you what area is great.
Yeah.
Because we've also discovered where maybe it's easy to get around, but maybe it doesn't look like it's close by.
Mm-hmm.
Like our old apartment, we completely lucked out because we had 2 trams, 2 buses, and the bike ride was super quick anywhere, but it doesn't really look that way on the map. So we can tell you the general area where maybe it's a little cheaper, but it's still really accessible, or maybe it's too loud or whatever. But yeah, we don't know hotels. But we can tell you our favorite restaurants, but there's so many to go to. There's restaurant week actually coming up, and I just wish we could go to all of them so that we could tell you all about them. But yeah, we do love this city. We love all that it has to offer. And I think as a tourist, if you do come to visit, do what you need to do to say that you've been in Amsterdam, but maybe look at some locals' blogs, maybe mine, and find some other things to do. There's some great neighborhoods that aren't really on the tourist path. We have a great 2 blog posts on the east and the north, and we're going to add to that. But, you know, just finding the real Amsterdam, I think, will just change everything about your opinion about this city. So I think that's a good time for us to say goodbye for now. We'll do another Q&A when we get some more questions that you guys want to know about. So until next time, guys, bye.
Bye.